This episode of Full Metal Panic: Invisible Victory might have the most off-key animation and artwork that I've seen from the franchise, but at least it has a loud, no-nonsense, cursing Lieutenant Colonel who works in profanity the way that some artists work in oils or clay. So let's get the mecha-sized elephant out of the room. This was a bad-looking episode of Full Metal Panic: Invisible Victory. Without a doubt, the most awkward-looking episode that I've seen from the entire series. Apparently, Invisible Victory has been plagued with production issues, and this is the result of that right here. Whether it be the delays of the episodes, the recap episodes, or the fact that the next couple episodes after this one are apparently going to be delayed until the very end of July. Basically, something's going on with the animation team that's working on this series. And that's always surprised me because, for the most part, Invisible Victory has looked really freaking good. Like, there are just some standout action scenes. And in fact, the last two episodes I thought have been really fantastic, even with some of the dips in animation. But here it simply cannot be ignored. I was watching this episode with a friend, and within like 5 minutes we just looked at each other and were like, this episode kind of looks like shit. And you know what? I can forgive it a little bit. This is essentially a build-up episode before we move on to the next one, where we get to go around to all the various characters and see how they're preparing for the next big confrontation. With Kaname desperately not wanting to be the damsel in distress and going through some swimming training, I guess she plans on just swimming away from the island. I don't know what this scene is about, but it's also there for a little bit of titillating fan service. You have Tessa, who has finally realized how much of a burden she's carrying on her shoulders, and she simply cannot even relax anymore. She tries to sleep, she just can't do it. She just has way too much on her mind, and being the leader of this organization in the darkest of their times, she has to put her biggest foot forward. And then, of course, we have Sosuke, who manages to survive in a scene at the beginning of the episode when suddenly he's attacked by some goons from Amalgam, and he even manages to take one of them out MacGyver style by taking this oxygen tank and then having it blow up in this guy's face when he shoots it. And the scene is really intense in a sense that, like, it's setting up something really awesome, but, man, is it just so badly animated, especially when the guy is on fire and Sosuke gets right next to him. Suddenly the fire just disappears as if it's like a light switch. It's just kind of awkward, and that combined with some of the off-key models here just really destroyed this episode, to be perfectly honest. Right after Sosuke survives this and Lemon realizes that this guy still has the will to kill, he decides to get him some special training with this Lieutenant Colonel who has the greatest sailor mouth I've seen from the series. And what's hilarious is that he actually says the word fuck multiple times, except that it's not like the actual translation of the word that we hear in Japan. It's the American English version of the word, and thus it has to be censored. There are bleeps in this episode, and it leads to some of the most unintentional funny scenes that I've seen from the episode, as Sosuke is literally going through boot camp again while being berated by what is essentially a cantankerous ex-Vietnam drill sergeant. It's really great in that respect, and there's also a good twist ending at the very end where this brand new armed slave mecha is about to be delivered, and it's suddenly picked up by a mysterious helicopter, which is being controlled by none other than Kalinin. Yes, he even manages to display his evil tendencies by actually shooting this guy in the stomach and trying to get some information out of him, which, if he does get that, he'll give him a first aid kit. But of course this guy spits blood in his face and says hell no, so he takes the med kit away. Basically, Kalinin is very edgy at this point. I don't know if this is like all a part of some plan, if he's actually like just trying to do something crazy and elaborate here, but he did just shoot this guy in the stomach, so he's probably not a very nice fella. So what's the rundown on this episode of Full Metal Panic: Invisible Victory? It looked like garbage. There's no getting around it. And honestly, a lot of the times I can get past bad animation as long as the story itself is good. This was just sort of a generic setup episode right here. It had some memorable moments in the introduction of that Lieutenant Colonel, which was just awesome and a pretty cool twist ending and everything, but the actual artwork and animation was so bad throughout the episode that it actually really took me out of the experience, and when it does that, it ends up hurting the story of the episode. That's just the way it is in this one. Is it watchable? Yeah. Is it the type of episode you should only watch once and then never look at again? Of course it is. Maybe they'll make it look better on the Blu-ray DVD release. There's a lot of things to improve in this episode right here. I mean, sometimes just the way the characters walk or they're standing still. It's really off-putting, and unfortunately it did kind of ruin this episode for me. Now, yes, I am being very nitpicky and making fun of the animation and everything, but I gotta review this stuff, and I have to speak from the heart. And this episode just looked fugly. At least, though, we're finally going to be moving forward in the story. All of these characters still have a really interesting arc that's going for them, and I can't wait to see how it's all eventually going to converge at the end of this big confrontation. I also love how Tessa is just the most badass character of this season. I mean, if it wasn't the scenes earlier on where she pointed the gun at one of her fellow soldiers, or where she told off Fowler in the last episode, even in this one right here, she is so no-nonsense about things, they will result to torture if they have to. That's how hardcore she is in this moment, and yet she's still just freaking adorable. And I can't wait to see where her story's ultimately be heading. I'm actually a little more interested in her story than Sosuke and Kaname's at this point, as it's an inevitability. These characters are going to meet each other again, but I can't wait to see how it's all going to go down. We'll just have to wait. But this episode right here, whew, man, I hate to say it, but I'm going to give this one a 2 out of 5. The animation truly did ruin the experience for me in this episode, and it was just basically just a setup episode right there. That being said, watch the episode if you're a fan of the series. Watch it to be able to keep up with the story, and then after that, just be done with it. That's really my only thoughts on this episode. So, yeah. 2 out of 5 for me. I'd love to hear your thoughts about it, however. Tell me in the comment section below, and what you guys hope to see from the rest of Full Metal Panic: Invisible Victory. Thank you guys for watching this review. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, stay down, baby.